Hey everybody, it's Gomedex, and welcome back to the penultimate Tinkerer's Cube draft on my channel. So we've got Kaldheim just around the corner. It's coming up on Wednesday, the early access event at least. So very much thanks to Wizards of the Coast for providing me with an early access account for that event. I will be streaming live tons of the set on Wednesday, as well as the start of the Kaldheim daily draft videos then, so very excited about that. In the meantime, we've got a Tinkerer's draft today and one final Tinkerer's Cube draft tomorrow. So let's get into the picks and see what we have here. So Runaway Steamkin's pretty sweet in mono red, but I don't really want to go hard on mono red immediately. Mono red is the kind of deck that is open often, and I can pretty easily just pivot into it and play that in literally any draft I've ever done of this set, as you can see from most of my videos. I mention it pretty much every time. So Runaway Steamkin's not something I'd really first pick, neither is Banefire, but they are both powerful in red. Conclave Tribunal's pretty nice. There's not a lot of removal in the cube, and this is a really efficient one. So I think that's a pretty solid pick. Tendershoot Dryad's going to go really great into any green deck, no matter your strategy, so Tendershoot Dryad's pretty great. I don't think any of the blue cards are strong enough to first pick, or the black cards. I think it's Tendershoot, Conclave Tribunal, maybe Banefire. I think it's one of those two. But I'm going to scoop up the Tendershoot Dryad there. All right, now we get Fauna Shaman, one of my favorite green cards in this cube. Actually, both of these are really nice. I might just like green cards in general, because I would say both of these are one of my favorite green cards in the cube. Gemrazer's great because I would say a lot of decks in this cube have random artifacts or enchantments. Crystalline Giant can go into any deck, the Mechagodzilla itself, and that's a really brutal card that needs to be answered as soon as possible. Gemrazer's fantastic against that. It's great against green-white enchantment decks. It's great against white-black life gain because they have plenty of enchantments like Griffinary and stuff like that. Black-red Sacrifice even has some, like the Lampet of Death's Vigil, or Mono-red has an Axe. There's just actually a lot of stuff that Gemrazer will just incidentally hit alongside it turning whatever you're mutating into a 4/4 reach trample, which is really solid even if you're not blowing something up. So I like Gemrazer a whole lot, but I do love me a Fauna Shaman as well, so I would absolutely love to see that wheel. I don't know for sure how likely that is. I guess it all depends on what everybody else at the table ends up drafting, but Fauna Shaman is definitely an exciting card as well. I think here I'll take a Pelt Collector. Just pretty simple, stay with our colors here, and it is one of the better cards in this pack. It is not necessarily the greatest in every green deck, because you really want to curve out with some aggressive threats, but it is quite good with Gemrazer, because this gets +1/+1 counters, so if you throw a Gemrazer onto it, then the Gemrazer is a 4/4 that keeps all of the +1/+1 counters that it's gotten previously. So Pelt Collector into a Gemrazer can become really big if you've played 2-mana 2/2 or something like that, so Pelt Collector has a counter or two on it. So I do like Pelt Collector a lot with the Gemrazer in our deck. That being said, there's not like a ton of green here, so maybe we will get cut out of green. If we were taking something that isn't green here, I don't think we'd take Hazoret. Hazoret's really just for mono red, or really, really aggressive red. I don't think red-green's great for that. I don't know, maybe like Supreme Will, just a random counterspell or something. That pack isn't incredibly exciting to me personally. But now there's not a single green card in this pack, so maybe we are getting hard cut out of green, so we gotta just see what the most powerful card in this pack in general is and just take that. There are, yet again, several powerful options. Tibalt is great in red, shutting off all of the life gain. There's lots of random life gain in the cube. Oath of Kai is a decent removal spell. It does require 2 colors to play it, so it's a bit rough in that sense, but it's a good removal spell, especially in the white-black life gain deck, because you are gaining 3 life. That is enough life to trigger Griffinary and other important gain 3 cards. Bloodthirsty Aerialist is really good for the life gain deck, as is Dawn of Hope, so maybe white-black life gain's the most open here. Unbreakable Bond is solid in Golgari, if we can end up doing that. Yeah, I think I like the Dawn of Hope here. Really solid pick for one of the more open strategies, it looks like. All right. Enchantress is looking pretty open, and that's the other thing I like about the Dawn of Hope pick, is that it also works well in just a green-white deck, because it works well in green-white enchantments, because it is an enchantment, and it works well in green-white tokens, because it makes tokens. So this isn't like strictly a white-black life gain card, and luckily for us, we did hit multiple cards that are pretty great in green-white enchantments. Two of these are also super playable in white-black life gain as well, so I think I want to take maybe one of these two over Ancestral Mask. I mean, Ancestral Mask, it is terrifying if you can play it in the early game with a bunch of enchantments out, but both Alseid of Life's Bounty and Nyx's Fleece Ram can work really well in green-white enchantments or white-black life gain, and we saw a decent amount of white-black life gain open there, so I want to take the card that works in multiple strategies. The Ancestral Mask really only works in green-white. That being said, it might not be panning out perfectly here, because I think I'm just going to slam the All That Glitters out of this pack. This is a really, really impressive card. 2 mana for an aura. Enchanted creature gets +1/+1 for each artifact and enchantment you control. Very similar to the Ancestral Mask, except that this is giving you a bit of a buff by itself. Ancestral Mask is only buffing it for each other enchantment you control. So if you get an unlucky draw where I just have a Gem Razor on the board and that's like it, throwing an Ancestral Mask on it does literally nothing. You have to have more enchantments on the board to support it. Whereas All That Glitters, at least you're getting at least the +1/+1. Plus this also triggers off of artifacts, but it does buff it half as much per card. It only does +1/+1. But counting itself and also hitting enchantments makes it a little more flexible, so I do like that card quite a bit still. And I'll take the Wolfwillow Haven here. It's only green card, and it's a good green card for green-white enchantments. It's an enchantment we can have just sitting on our field for stuff like All That Glitters that also can ramp us into maybe an early Tendershoot Dryad or something. That could be good. I suppose there's an argument for Release the Dogs as well, for Selesnya tokens. If we manage to get a Divine Visitation, then we would definitely want this in our deck, but I think I like the enchantment a little better. Fabled Passage it is. Fabled Passage is very solid mana fixing for any deck, no matter what color you end up in. So I'm going to take the Fabled Passage out of that pack. This is a pretty late runaway Steamkin if we wanted to hop on the red train. But I'm liking our start for a green-white just enchantments deck, with an aggressive curve as well, just trying to spit out an All That Glitters early and get real aggressive. So I'm liking the start. So I think I'm fine with Gustwalker. Gustwalker, one of the least exciting cards in this cube. It doesn't fit into any particular strategy. It's just a decent creature for any moderately aggressive deck, so it'll be fine to curve into that with a Pelt Collector on the board. So we're getting a counter on Pelt Collector, and then we can attack in with it with flying. It's just not that exciting. Because it obviously doesn't have any massive synergy with any archetype here. Here I'll definitely take Trusty Retriever. We're really liking the secondary ability on this, being able to return any artifact or enchantment from our graveyard to our hand. So we can bring back an Alseid if we've sacrificed it to protect something. We can bring back All That Glitters if whatever we've attached has died. And we could even bring back Wolfwillow Haven in the really late game to get another wolf token or something. So there's a few different things that work there. Famished Paladin is just not very exciting to me, even when I'm in a life gain deck. It's basically just a 2 mana 3/3, which is good for the cost, but it just doesn't like combo into anything crazy. So I think I'm just going to take Bubble Snare here. Like maybe we end up in like blue-green with a little bit of an Enchantress sub-theme, and then like Cartouche of Knowledge could be for the same reason. But I think I just take Wanderer's Strike here. There's not a ton of removal in the cube, so it is important to pick up the decent ones when you can. So let's pick up the Wanderer's Strike. You definitely want to have some removal in your deck every time, because if you don't, there are plenty of just like 2 creature combos that just go off and go insane, and there's plenty of just like single creatures that can take over the game, like Tendershoot Dryad just takes over the game by itself. We got last pick, Release the Dogs, so I mean, I feel like Selesnya is definitely open then, and we can absolutely hit up this Selesnya enchantments list. Or we could even do Selesnya tokens now that we have Released the Dogs. Patron of the Valiant as well. That one's for like a +1/+1 counter deck, so we could just be all the Selesnya themes at once with a little bit of each. Ideally, you want to focus in on one, but all of them are pretty good here. So there's Venerated Loxodon, which works best with the +1/+1 counter theme and a little bit the token theme. Fate's Fetters is just going to be removal in anything we end up being in. So I kind of like Fate's Fetters the best here, but Onstara's Wings is also a really solid aura to turn anything into a really good threat that's also gaining you life, so it's really hard to race. Selvala, I think, is the least likely card in our colors to get played in this deck. I think it's between one of these white cards, Onstara's Wings, Fate's Fetters, and Venerated Loxodon, and I'm just going to take the Fetters, just take the really solid removal again, and we'll see what we wheel out of Loxodon or Onstara's Wings. Selvala is not really for the green-white deck, because the green-white decks don't tend to have a ton of really expensive cards, so you're not really ramping that much. And the drawing cards ability, you're not likely to have too many like really big creatures. Selvala is really at her best in like, I'd say probably green-red ramp would be the best strategy for her. We could take Daxos as an enchantment creature here. Also sits there and gains life. I suppose Woodland Champion can be... Yeah, Woodland Champion can be really solid with the token sub-theme, and now we have Dawn of Hope producing tokens, and Release the Dogs makes tokens. Do I not have any 3-mana cards? I guess I don't have any 3-mana cards right now. That's really weird. Oh yeah, Tendershoot Dryad also makes a token. Makes a token every single upkeep. Yeah, Woodland Champion seems really solid in this deck. We'd love to hit Oracle of Moldiah, but I feel like that'll get scooped up. Maybe we even take the Oracle just because Woodland Champion would be more likely to wheel, but I think Woodland Champion just has the potential to be so strong in this deck, I just don't want to pass it, even though it could potentially wheel. I'm going to take Luminarch Aspirant here, and maybe we can wheel Branching Evolution. Branching Evolution is one of those cards I don't like taking unless I'm really big on its theme, and right now I just have a minor amount of +1/+1 counters. This is just one of those cards that by itself doesn't do anything. You absolutely have to synergize with it, but when you do, it's pretty incredible. That being said, Luminarch Aspirant is just incredible by itself. You don't need anything to synergize with it. It's just going to sit there, and even if you have no other creatures on the board, you just play this on turn 2, and it puts a counter on itself, so it's a 2/2, and then next turn, on turn 3, the first turn it's attacking, it's a 2-mana 3/3, and the turn after that it's a 4/4. You literally don't even need any other card on the board, and the Luminarch Aspirant is very solid. Alright, I guess we're kind of moving into the +1/+1 counter theme here with Basri's Lieutenant, another great +1/+1 counter synergistic card. Whenever one of your creatures with a counter on it dies, you get to create a 2/2 White Knight with Vigilance. This makes all of your threats resilient to removal. Even if your opponent's using a bunch of removal spells on your threats, you're still attacking in with these nice little Vigilant Knight tokens, so I like Basri's Lieutenant quite a bit. And Protection from Multicolored is actually kind of relevant in this cube sometimes, which is cool as well. I like it better than Setescent Training. This is just not that exciting of an aura. We've definitely seen a lot more exciting in this cube and in this draft. So we have Rishkar Pima Renegade for the +1/+1 counter theme, or we have Krull Harpooner as just a really solid 2-drop. I do have a lot going on in 2 mana here, so I don't really need the Harpooner, but it is quite nice, especially like with Pelt Collector. Having something that you can cast for really cheap that also has 3 power is really good with the Collector, because then you can like play a turn 2 Woodland Champion, turn 3 Krull Harpooner, and then your Pelt Collector's a 3/3 on turn 3. I think that is solid for that reason, but I'm getting enough +1/+1 counter synergies, and I don't have anything at 3 mana yet, that I think Rishkar is just going to work better in this deck. Okay. Danitha does make our auras cost less, and she's just a really efficient beater. There's also Scavenging Ooze, though, and I do like this card a lot. By itself, it gets larger throughout the game while gaining you life to help race your opponent, and if you happen to be against a self-mill deck, it's just absolutely absurd. And then there's like Warbriar Blessing for some removal, but we do have Face Fetters and Wanderer's Strike, so we do have a couple removal spells already, and we'll have one more pack to pick them up, so I think at this point I want to take Actually, probably Danitha. Again, just for the curve. Our curve is really awkward here, just not having anything at 3 right now, so I really want to fill that out. And this pick is going to be really easy. Just take the Nyx Herald. We've got a few auras to give +1/+1 to an enchanted creature with this, and by itself, it can give itself +1/+1. And it also works with like our All Seed of Life's Bounty. That is an enchantment creature, so it's definitely better than the other 2 cards. Migration Path is for ramping up into big stuff. Our biggest stuff is going to be 5 mana. We don't need to ramp into that. And Sifter Worm, we don't want that in this deck. It's just going to cost a lot of mana. That is for a ramp style deck. All right. Enchantress's Presence. This is one of the slower green-white Enchantress cards, but it still being here pick 8 makes me feel like the green-white Enchantress strategy in general is pretty open. So we're gonna be green-white, just a kind of a mix of all the strategies. You've got some of the token stuff, some of the +1/+1 counter stuff, and some of the Enchantress stuff. We'll definitely have to look at what we have the most of in any pack where there's something for several different synergies. But when it's a pack like that, where literally the only thing for our deck is just Enchantress's Presence, that just makes it really easy. We can just be a little bit of everything right now, but we'll definitely want to own it down to just a few strategies when we build the deck. All right. Cetessan Training going really late. Cetessan Training super solid with Enchantress's Presence, because then you're drawing 2 cards off that, which is cool. I could take Karn's Bastion here. I'm just not going to play anything that isn't green or white at this point. I mean, with a Fabled Passage, maybe I run 1 Lord of Extinction. Splash it in. Probably not, though. All right. Let's go. Cetessan Champion is pretty perfect here. We've got that +1/+1 counter sub-theme and the enchantment theme. Cetessan Champion works with both. I think that's definitely more solid than Oviya Pashiri or Pride of Conquerors. This card's just really slow, but it does take over the game by itself, but it does it really slowly. You have to be dumping a lot of mana into it. It fills a similar role to like Tettershoot Dryad, but it does it way slower than the Dryad does, so I just really don't want Pashiri here. Definitely Champion. Fueling us every time we're casting an enchantment and making the champion even larger. It's just a really solid card for this deck. This is not a Panharmonicon deck. It's not a Titanoth Rex deck either. We don't have any Reanimator spells, and we won't because we're not in black. And we just don't have ramp to cast a 9 mana card, so I guess Fearless Fledgling is the closest to what we're doing here. Could take a Tranquil Thicket as well, I suppose. Just a land that we can cycle later. I think I like the Fearless Fledgling better than that, though. Goes with the +1/+1 counter theme that is available in these colors. Helm of the Host is really strong. It is pretty slow, though. Finale of Glory is super solid, but also kind of slow, because you really want to play this as late as possible, get as many of those soldier tokens as you can. I like Jade Light Ranger, and it fits with the +1/+1 counters. I think Jade Light Ranger is better than the Emissary of Sunrise. Exploring twice is definitely pretty impressive. We're just not a Soul Warden deck. So Helm of the Host, Jade Light Ranger, Finale of Glory. These are all pretty good. They're pretty fine picks. I'll pick the Helm of the Host. I literally haven't run a deck with Helm of the Host yet, so maybe we can get some of that fun combo stuff going. This is going to be a really easy pacifism. We have the Enchantress sub-theme going. We've got multiple ways to draw a card every time we play an enchantment, both the Presence and the Cetessan Champion. So we've got solid stuff to combo with pacifism, and it's also just removal, even if we didn't have anything to combo with it, so it's a super fine card here. I think my favorite card to wheel out of this pack would just be like a Thrashing Brontodon to be able to interact with opposing artifacts and enchantments. As I was saying when I was talking about Gem Razor earlier, there's just a lot of incidental artifacts and enchantments ending up in pretty much every deck. Well, Ranger Vios is the only card in our colors, but I doubt we're playing that. This lets you search for 1 mana creatures, throw them into your hand, which we only have 2, so it just doesn't seem the greatest. Angelic Exaltation could be pretty good here. This is great when you've got a lot of creatures on the board, but only like 1 or 2 you want to attack with. Even if you don't have any creatures that you'd want to attack with without this, once it hits the board, makes all of your 1/1s like being able to attack alone is like a 5/5. It's pretty solid. I guess Kenra's Transformation is also good removal for this cube for shutting off all of the abilities of something crazy. So I'm actually going to take Kenra's Transformation there, and I'm glad I did that, because we get really rewarded off of this pick. The Core Spirit Dancer, allowing us to draw a card every time we cast an Aura spell. So she combos incredibly well with Aura-based removal spell, of which we have, I think, almost every one. We've got Faith's Fetters, an Aura-based removal spell. Kenra's Transformation, an Aura removal spell. Pacifism, an Aura removal spell. I think the only one we don't have is like the Cartouche of Strength that I can think of. So that's really solid. And now we get the Sigil of the Empty Throne. Whenever we cast an enchantment spell, create a 4/4 white angel with flying. We are definitely going to cut down on our number of +1/+1 counter cards and throw in a lot of Enchantress cards into this deck. That way, we're making our deck as consistent and synergistic as possible. Really focus in on the one theme now that we've gotten enough cards for it. So I think this is going to be a very solid deck overall. Titanoth Rex, I'm not going to play any of these cards, I don't think, but I suppose Titanoth Rex is the only one in our colors. Could splash in a Rashmi. That actually seems more likely to me than playing the 9-mana card, but it's not very likely. Alright, Jade Light Ranger, I said before I like that better than the Emissary. Throw that in here. I don't actually have that many enter the battlefield effects, right? And I could cut down to actually work around the Hushbringer. I guess Song of Freyalise is an enchantment, but it's really weird in here. Just ramps up off of your creatures. Yeah, I think I'm just taking Hushbringer. I don't think I'm going to end up running any of those cards, but we could build around Hushbringer. Ooh, an Angelic Exaltation. An enchantment that also helps our stuff. Oh, and Nessian Wander is a fantastic last pick. This is actually a lot better than it works. A lot better than it looks. It's just a 2-mana 1/3, so it's definitely not that exciting when you look at it. But being able to just keep drawing lands every time you're casting an enchantment spell to thin your deck out is really sweet. Yeah, this card's super solid. So we get to cut 14 cards. Selesnya did end up being quite open there. So we get to make a lot of cuts. So now we're going to start cutting basically just a ton of stuff that's not for the enchantment strategy. So like Release the Dogs is for like a counter deck, a token deck, and Woodland Champion as well. Gonna cut those out. Think I'm cutting Branching Evolution as well. Now we're really just going in on the enchantment theme. We're definitely not cutting a single enchantment creature. We're going to make a pile at the far right here for stuff that we might cut. I need to cut 11 things, so I got to make a big pile here. Probably not doing the +1/+1 counter theme, but even without it, Basri's Lieutenant is very solid. I guess Danitha makes our auras cheaper. I like Ronom Unicorn for just random artifact and enchantment removal, but we'll see. Aspirant is really solid by itself, but yeah, I do need to cut a lot of cards here. I'm going to end up with not a lot of creatures in this deck, the way it's looking, but hopefully with just the right creatures we'll have a good time. 4 more cuts. I mean, with not a ton of creatures, am I actually just cutting Helm of the Host? I mean, Helm of the Host on Tendershoot Dryad would be absolutely hilarious, but I think we have plenty of other ways to try to take over the game that are a lot more synergistic. And they do things by themselves, whereas Helm of the Host, we really need a creature to throw it on. And it is really slow. It doesn't do anything the turn we play it. 2 more cards to cut. I don't think I'm cutting any of my non-creatures still, so we're going to have a very low amount of creatures in this deck. We've got 13 right now. Maybe at this point I do have to cut a couple non-creatures. How many enchantment creatures do I have? Just the one, right? I have 2. I have Nyx Herald and All Seed of Life's Bounty. Okay. So I've got a couple enchantment creatures to trigger that kind of stuff. I'll cut Oviya Pashiri. She is just generally quite slow. How many enter the battlefield effects do I have on my creatures? Whenever enchantment enters the battlefield, when Jade Light Ranger enters the battlefield, when Trusty Retriever enters, when Bosri's Lieutenant enters. Okay, I've got enough. I don't want to play Hushbringer. But I've actually lowered my creature count so much that I probably want to throw back in something else and cut an enchantment or 2. Could throw Luminarch Aspirant back in here. I think that's probably the best creature that I've cut out of this deck. Throw the Aspirant back in. Cut an enchantment here. Or let's see our curve. Average 3. I've got a Nessian Wanderer scooping up lands. I've got a Wolfwillow Haven. Maybe I could actually just cut a land here. 14 white symbols and 10 green symbols. I'll just cut the Karn's Bastion. Oh, it refilled with a forest there. So 14 white and what green? 10 green. But I've got double green on Jade Light Ranger, double green on Gem Razor. Do I have any double white cards? My only double white is Sigil of the Empty Throne, right? But I've got a double green card on turn 3, double green on turn 3 because we're trying to mutate that. Seven, 14, 15, 16 lands. Kind of want to cut another white source and throw in another green. It seems weird because I do have more white cards than green cards, but I have 2 cards that cost double green that I want to cast on turn 3 consistently. Whereas pretty much all of my white cards until turn 5, there's a single white card that needs 2 white mana. So I'm going to cut 1 white for 1 green. And then I'm going to shut off our Parallax card styles, and we're going to try out this green-white Enchantress deck. So super solid that it ended up being open here. I was trying to keep definitely an open eye for the strategy. I've gotten a request to draft this strategy at least once before these Tinker's Cube drafts end, so it is really nice to be able to hit it up here. That makes me very happy. Let's see how well this deck runs as we head into the first round. Okay. Well, not a lot of green-white Enchantress stuff going on here, but a very powerful start being able to play Luminarch Aspirant on turn 2 on the play. Should put a lot of pressure on our opponent if they don't have an efficient removal spell to cast in the early turns of this game. No removal yet. And here comes Danitha. Could make like a real scary Danitha with Luminarch Aspirant. I kind of want to do that because of the first strike vigilance and lifelink. +1/+1 counters on Danitha are just generally going to be a lot more powerful than +1/+1 counters on a creature with no keyword abilities. Every single one of these abilities makes this creature getting bigger really good. Oops. Keep opening up my menu by accident. We're definitely going to cast Angelic Exaltation here, so we're getting in for 2 more damage off of every attack. When we attack alone. Really, really nice start here. Opponent is down to 12 already. They have a Llanowar Visionary on board, which means that they have 5 mana this turn. I don't know what it is about these card styles, but it just weirds me out. We'll see what they have here. They've certainly got a lot to think about. They're under a ton of pressure, so they do not want to misplay here. Mantle of the Wolf on the Llanowar Visionary, so it is a 6/6. Unfortunately, with Luminarch Aspirant's ability, Danitha is still going to be too big, especially with a Trusty Retriever coming out as well. We're playing the Trusty Retriever so that we get even more power out of Angelic Exaltation, even more damage out of it, I should say. And we're not going to be picking up an artifact or enchantment from our grave anytime soon, I feel. Maybe they will be able to Gem Razor on the Llanowar Visionary to kill Angelic Exaltation, but even without Angelic Exaltation, thanks to Luminarch Aspirant still being on this board, if all they do next turn is kill the Exaltation, I'm still absolutely in the driver's seat this game. It looks like cutting a land did not go poorly at all here. We've got plenty this game. With Mantle of the Wolf, our opponent is likely to survive a while, because Mantle of the Wolf makes it so when the enchanted creature dies, they do spit out 2/2/2 wolf tokens, so they get even more chump blockers. And there's this concession. I was just going to play a land and then attack in with the with Danitha. I think I was getting to the point where I was going to start throwing +1/+1 counters onto my other creatures, so that I wouldn't just be completely halted by a single removal spell from my opponent. Because we were at the point now where Danitha was attacking in as an 8/8 first strike. Their field was definitely not big enough to kill that. So if the game proceeded past that point, that's when we just start spreading out the +1/+1 counters onto our other creatures each turn to spread out our threats. I tried to say that word several times and failed multiple times in a row. So our opponent goes first this time. They could get off to an aggressive start. Here comes Gutterbones. No, Plagued Ruzalka, alright. Not the most aggressive start possible, but playing a creature on turn 1 is aggressive. The most aggressive start possible would have been turn 1 Gutterbones, 1 mana 2/1 in black. There's Skyclave Shade, 2 mana 3/1, so very close to the most aggressive start possible. So I do get to play a Core Spirit Dancer here. It may just get killed by a removal spell, but if not, it gets to stop Plagued Ruzalka. This is a little awkward. I can take 4, or I can block Plagued Ruzalka to stop 1 damage. The problem with that is then Core Spirit Dancer has 1 damage on it, so it's essentially a 0/1, so they could then sacrifice Skyclave Shade to kill Spirit Dancer, and then with its ability just landfall and cast it again. The alternative is to just keep taking damage. I'm going to not block. Be a little bold here, really hoping to hit turn 4 Faith's Fetters. Well, with Drana from our opponent, we might not have time, but we did hit the land for turn 4. I am going to drop down Cetessan Champion. If all of my creatures and myself survive this turn, we are absolutely going to cast Faith's Fetters on Drana. We'll get to draw 2 cards when I do that, potentially. They could sacrifice both of their other creatures to kill this. I guess Drana puts a +1/+1 counter on during the first strike damage step. So Cetessan Champion would actually take 2 from Ruzalka. Yeah, this is rough. Drana is really good here. Pushes in for 6 more damage from those. I'm down to 7. Faith's Fetters gaining life is going to be very relevant. There's an Orzhov Enforcer from our opponent. There's a Sigil of the Empty Throne. We've got late game options, but we just need to survive these early turns. They only have 1 mana up, so they can sacrifice Drana to stop me from gaining the life, but they can't kill any of my creatures in response. I will absolutely draw a card. Ooh, yeah, I guess Faith's Fetters doesn't hit the battlefield either. That is absurdly good against us. Yeah, that's brutal. All around brutal. So Cetessan Champion doesn't get the +1/+1 counter. Well, it turns out this is actually just a horrible matchup for us. Yeah, I don't think there's a lot we could do here. They just got the aggressive start with a sacrifice outlet on the board. Oh, I guess they sacrifice Orzhov Enforcer to kill Setessan Champion if I do this, and then they get a 1/1 flyer out of the deal. I just can't do anything this matchup. Just trump there, take 3. Oh my god. Oh my god. Alright, well, Drawn is back with Menace and Death Touch. First Strike, Menace, Death Touch. That is a set of abilities there. We're super dead. I don't really want to play this out at this point. I could probably survive through that turn if I did the right line, but I'm over it. I'm super over it, that game. Really fantastic start from my opponent. This is one of the drawbacks with the Enchantress decks. They are one of the slower strategies to get off the ground running. I think that is why my probable, I don't know if I'd say favorite, because I do really like Golgari Reanimator, but that is also a slow strategy to get off the ground running, so I don't think Golgari Reanimator is one of the best ones. But Golgari Reanimator is one of my favorites. But yeah, I was going to say, it's probably why I think that the best 2 strategies in the format are red-based aggro, like primarily like mono-red, and then white-black life gain, because both of those decks can just get off the ground running so quickly. Red aggro decks obviously just come out and they just keep throwing burn spells at whatever your opponent's doing to shut off their combos as they just like beat your face with creatures. But then like the white-black life gain decks, they're all about just doing their own thing as quickly as possible, but their synergistic combos and stuff just start off on turn 1. They just play Soulborn and then they play a Johnny's Pride Mate and you're already just like, oh boy, oh god. And then turn 3 they play Heliod and the game's basically over. But the enchantment decks, the Enchantress decks, my biggest issue with them is that like they are pretty slow to start, and a lot of their synergistic cards are really easy to kill, like the Core Spirit Dancer just dying there. And there's stuff like Gem Razor and what else did I have in this deck? Like Thrashing Brontodon, and there's the elf thing that comes into play and destroys an artifact or enchantment. I just think there's a lot of ways to deal with their best cards pretty efficiently. Alright, so Brain Maggot and Slaughter Priest of Mogis. Do I want to just play a 3/4? I think I want to hold on to the Trusted Retriever, because I could hit like good artifacts and enchantments later. And if I can Gem Razor onto something, I can kill Brain Maggot, get back my pacifism. That seems pretty good. So let's play Jade Light Ranger and maybe try to Gem Razor here. Enchantress's Presence is a good draw too. If we can get that on the board, we're starting to draw a lot of cards when we're casting things like Setessan Training. We're not under that much pressure here. It is just painful to lose the Core Spirit Dancer turn 2. Havoc Jester from our opponents, so whenever they sack anything, they're dealing damage to any target of their choice. So, could Gem Razor to kill Brain Maggot, and then I have Pacifism ready. But I can also just have a really big blocker and draw 2 cards here, which actually seems fine against their current board state. And there's Sigil of the Empty Throne. Pretty nice card coming up. So they can sacrifice one of their cards to make Slaughter Priest of Mogis a 4/2 first strike, and they do a damage to whatever they want with Havoc Gesture. That'd be kind of a scary attack. If they have another removal spell, I'm taking 5, 6, 7, 8. That would be pretty scary. Uh-oh. Dragon Fodder, providing them 2 cards to sacrifice to the Slaughter Priest. Get to do 2 damage to Jade Light Ranger. It's not going to be enough to immediately kill it, so I don't know what damaging the Jade Light Rangers about. Maybe they have a shock in their hand to do the final 2 damage. But otherwise, I don't know why they aren't just throwing the 1 damage at my face. Weird. Maybe they really want to attack with Brain Maggot here? Okay, yeah, I mean, there's just no reason to throw the damage at the Jade Light Ranger then, because Slaughter Priest and Mogi's had like first strike anyway, even if it wasn't going to have enough. Actually, yeah, I have no idea why they did the 1 damage, because it was going to have enough power to kill Jade Light Ranger regardless. So I can Wanderer Strike to kill the Havoc Gesture or the Slaughter Priest. That seems pretty fine. Could also just cast the Sigil, draw a card, and set up for next turn. But this is a pretty pressuring board state from my opponent. Kind of like Gem Razor. Kill Brain Maggot, pick up Pacifism for Slaughter Priest. But both the Slaughter Priest and Havoc Gesture have relevant abilities, so Pacifism isn't like the greatest removal I could have here. Maybe I just Wanderer Strike, kill Havoc Gesture. Proliferate onto Jade Light Ranger, that means it has 4 toughness. The only way that they can kill Jade Light Ranger on an attack is to attack with Slaughter Priest and sacrifice Brain Maggot, unless they play another creature. Oop, Shadow Spear is super solid here. If they send in an attack, I'll block. I'll let them kill Jade Light Ranger, and alright. Spoke too soon. They did have another creature in hand. So any block with Jade Light Ranger would just be a chump block now. But if they didn't play another creature and they sent in with Slaughter Priest, I could block, and then the only way that they kill Jade Light Ranger and keep their Slaughter Priest would be to sacrifice Brain Maggot, which would mean that I'd get the Pacifism back to deal with the Slaughter Priest. That being said, I can just get the Pacifism back now, so we're fine. So we'll Gem Razor here, and then Pacifism. And I get to get in for 8 here. I think they're pretty much dead in 2 turns. Because I'm drawing a card here. Next turn I throw All That Glitters onto Gem Razor. So I need to do 15 damage next turn, but All That Glitters will be giving it plus 1, 2, 3 more. So that's 11. Plus Dawn of Hope would be 12. I guess they're not dead in 2 turns, but they're close to it. We could do 12 damage next turn. They'd be at 3 life. Angelic Exaltation is really good too. I think there's an argument for casting the Sigil, but I really want to just get in with as much damage as I possibly can here. So I'm going to play Angelic Exaltation, draw a card, and play All That Glitters. Maybe I'm probably supposed to play All That Glitters first, draw a card off of the cheapest card, because then I see if I like hit a land to play something more expensive. I'm going to crack the Fabled Passage before I cast my next card here, so I'm less likely to hit another land. Alright, we're attacking for 14. We're 1 damage off. Thanks to the Angelic Exaltation. If they just active treason me on the last turn, that would be hilarious. I don't think it's funny anymore. I regret everything. I don't think it's funny anymore. It's not hilarious. I lied. I meant it would be terrible and devastating. Oh, Jesus. So, I don't know if I'm just really unlucky, but this is about the same... This is the same experience that I had the first time I drafted the Green-White Enchantress deck, where I just look at the deck that I have, and I look at the synergies I have, I'm like, I have most of the powerful Green-White Enchantress payoff cards. You know, I have Core Spirit Dancer, I have Sigil of Distinction, I have Setessan Champion, All That Glitters, all that kind of stuff. And I am just repeatedly dying over and over. So I don't know why, but I think this is my least favorite strategy in the cube. It just does not work out for me. That is for sure. I think I get rid of Exaltation here because I'm unlikely to be like really bashing my opponent, so I'd rather have just the good removal. Definitely a slow hand. You know what it is? You know what it is? It's probably because I didn't use my Bolas lands. That's the whole problem the whole time. That's what's really jinxed me here. I just stuck to the default lands. But these are Bob Ross lands. I mean, come on. How is running Bob Ross lands going to hinder your deck? So I could have Kenra's transformationed their Nightmare Shepherd to shut off its ability, but because I have Sigil of the Empty Throne in my hand, I do not want to play my enchantment until I have this out, so I'm getting an Angel as well. It might work out poorly for me if they play more creatures that'll die for the Nightmares ability, but like when their only creature on board is the Nightmare Shepherd, it's not that scary. Alright, bringing back a Blade Juggler would be pretty good, as would bringing back a Seeker Squire. I think... oh no, Brain Maggot from my opponents? God, that is really bad for me. I can't do anything to stop the Brain Maggot, so if I want to have a Sigil of the Empty Throne on the field, I have to cast it now. The problem with that is if I cast it now, then they'll just Brain Maggot my one enchantment in my hand, and I'm relying entirely on my top decks to do anything with the Sigil. I suppose I can just exile Nightmare Shepherd with Wanderer's Strike. Nyx Herald goes up to a 4/5. It attacks as a 5/6 trample. That is enough toughness to get in past the Blade Juggler and Seeker Squire. They can't double block and kill it. Yeah, I really don't love this. But I'm going to Wanderer's Strike Nightmare Shepherd here, and I'm just going to let him take my Sigil of the Empty Throne with their Brain Maggot. They're down to 10 life, so we might not need to play the long game with Sigil of the Empty Throne. They get rid of Kenra's transformation. I guess, yeah, Sigil of the Empty Throne doesn't do anything by itself, so I do have to draw into another enchantment. Luckily for us, we have like 10 in our deck, so we are pretty likely to. That being said, they could always have a counter spell, and that's why they just left it in our hand. I'm not really going to bait out a counter spell with this test and training, I think, because they know that we have Sigil of the Empty Throne in our hand, so there's no possible way to play around the counterspell, because they know Sigil's coming. So if I attack here, they have to block with everything to kill it, in which case I get to kill Brain Maggot, so I'm definitely fine with this attack. Alright, let's kill that Brain Maggot for sure. I think I like killing the highest toughness cards. Nah, I'm going to kill Blade Juggler, actually. I've got two cantrips here. Kenra's Transformation and Setessan Training. I guess killing the 2/3 would let my 2/2 Knight token get in, but I honestly forgot about the secondary ability on Basri's Lieutenant. I forgot I'm getting a Knight token there. I can throw a Kenra's Transformation onto my Knight token then, and it's got 3 power and everything gets to send in against the Seeker Squire. Unburial Rites is pretty good on a Blade Juggler, letting him draw another card. I can also just turn my 2/2 into a 3/3, which is also cute. I think I have to draw a card here. I mean, just my current board is not going to break through well. Yeah, this is awkward. But yeah, I'm just trying to cantrip, draw cards here. Alright, All Seed of Life's Bounty. Pretty good against a field of nothing but black cards. Can sacrifice to give protection from their whole field. Am I playing Transformation? Probably not. Let's send in. Block there. Sacrifice my All Seed, give pro black, and just eat the Squire. Hit them for 3, they're down to 6. Or I could just take the trade. They've got Unburial Rites again coming up. Could Brain Maggot my transformation. I'm just going to take the trade. They're down to 6 now. Pass turn. Derova Horror. That just kills All Seed no matter what they do. Because they target All Seed, it'll go to my hand and I'll discard it, or I'll sacrifice it on something. Guess I could sacrifice Kendra's transformation, but that seems wrong. Sure. I think if I sacrificed that, actually, it would probably still make me discard a card. So that would just be really bad. Indomitable Will. That's pretty cool. I can turn Basri's Lieutenant into a 4/6. Still not big enough to attack into their field if it's attacking it as a 4/6. Even with Kendra's transformation on it, because they can still just double block, but let's throw Kendra's transformation out. We're definitely still trying to top deck into something. Dawn of Hope is something. That's for sure. Start spitting out lifelink and soldiers. So they do the double block and we kill Denrova Horror. Oh, they have Unburial Rites. We kill Blade Juggler. Then... yeah, we kill Blade Juggler. Maybe I'm at the point where I was supposed to just sit here and do nothing, but I feel like doing that against an opponent with like a full grip and an Unburial Rites, it's just like a surefire way to lose. But I don't know. She feels like uber admitting defeat. I guess the attack is pretty bad too. Just having a bad time no matter what happens. Illusionist Stratagem on Denrova Horror to bounce it, get rid of Indomitable Will here. Would I rather turn my 1/1 lifelinker into a 2/3 lifelinker, or... oh. Okay, well then I'm just holding on to Indomitable Will so I can keep Dawn of Hope. Totally forgot about the ETB effect. Wait, what? They have double black up? What on earth are they holding for? Erebos' Intervention on my 1/1. They're going to try to attack for lethal here? I guess they shut off a chump block, and then I can chump block and draw a card off of Dawn of Hope's ability. Because Dawn of Hope allows me to draw a card for 2 mana anytime I gain life. Gaunty grabs a card from my deck. Let's see what else we got going on here. Drawn to Faith's Fetters is not bad. I don't think I'm using it yet, though. I could, like, shut off Denrova Horror and gain 3 life, but I can also just chump block things at this point. So I, like, kill one of their cards, draw a card for 6 mana. Wow. Alright. My opponent just on the most annoying strategy Dot deck 1, 2, 3. That's 3 different creatures that ETB and make me discard a card. 2 of which they choose any card. Let's block there. Gain a life. Draw a card. Draw into something. Ooh, Luminarch Aspirant. It's not bad at all either. It'll be a 2/2 here. Let's see, 8 mana. I'll have 9 mana. I'm going to be 7 after Luminarch Aspirant, so that's not enough. We'll just hold the land in my hand, and maybe they'll make me discard another card off of something. Because I've got enough mana to make 1 token and draw a card here anyway. This way I might bait out another Mind Rot or Duress style card. At a time when it doesn't really matter. Alright, let's get our 1/1 blocker. Really don't like losing the Luminarch Aspirant, but if I don't lose the Luminarch Aspirant, I'm taking 4. I go to 5 life thanks to the 1 life link. Yeah, I guess after that, Aspirant does get up to 3 power, which is enough to block Entomber Exarch without dying, so that probably doesn't get to send in next turn. It's probably worth not blocking there. Pay the 2. I could also, like, make one of my soldier tokens a 2/2. I guess they just have exact lethal with Grey Merchant. Oh, not exact lethal. When you cast Grey Merchant, it says the devotion based on what's currently on your field, so it said 5 as their black devotion, but once it hits the field, it also counts its 2 devotion to make it 7, so that always confuses me a little bit. Alright, so... I mean, with Grey Merchant, even if we stopped 2 more damage by blocking either of their 2 power creatures with Luminarch Aspirant, we would have died still. I guess no, if we traded for Entomber Exarch, their devotion to black would be 2 less, and we would have taken 2 less damage, so we'd be at 2 life with no cards on the board. I mean, Dawn of Hope is a card. So we'd have like some 1/1 soldiers. Yeah, we could have tried to survive longer, so the best play there, in hindsight, would have been the trade with the Entomber Exarch, because there's a possibility of surviving a bit longer, just being able to create 1/1 chump blocking lifelinkers. Well, I don't really know what to say here, honestly. That is the worst Tinkerer's Cube draft run I've actually ever done with this cube. Pretty much every other time, it's always been like 4th, 3/3 or better. There's only been 2 times that I've gone under a 3/3 rating, and both times have been with green-white Enchantress. So I think it is generally just my least favorite strategy in this cube. I think it's generally just too slow. I think 2 of our losses were very much because the deck was just too slow to get its synergies going on. And then one of them was just, it was pretty easy for our opponents to disrupt us. So I think there's multiple reasons that the deck, or the general strategy, just doesn't fire on all cylinders that often. When it does, it can be a sight to behold, but unfortunately for me, the wheels did not start turning today. So there are some cool things you can do with this strategy, but generally, I personally generally avoid it just because, I don't know, it just doesn't vibe well with my energy, I guess. I just go 1-3 both times that I draft it, so sad draft today, but we've got one more Tinkerer's Cube draft ahead of us. See if we can't get a pretty sweet run there, get another 7-win run out of the way, maybe. Oh, I would have liked to see what I got there. I accidentally just didn't even see the cards. Come on, collection. What are my new cards? We got Aeronaut Admiral, I was going to say Rampaging Barrage, but this is Repeating Barrage, and Imperial Voyager. So some pretty cool pretty cool little prizes, all from Kaladesh too, which is cool. Actually didn't get to draft as much Kaladesh as I'd have wanted to, just because it came out during the holiday season, which is just the infinitely most busy time in the universe for any retail worker like myself. Anyways, that is going to end today's Tinkerer's Cube draft video. We've got tons of content coming up in the near future, tons of Kaldheim coming up. I'm very pumped for that. So tomorrow, we've got the final Tinkerer's Cube draft. On Wednesday, that will start the daily Kaldheim draft videos. I am hoping to get a really good grasp on the format as quickly as possible. I'll be doing some independent research of my own before I hop into the early access event. I'm going to be checking out LVD's tier list, Deathsea's tier list, all of their limited set reviews. If Limited Resources uploads theirs before the set comes out, I'll be looking into that as well. I am going to go very hard on Kaldheim as soon as possible because I want to bring you all the best, most informative content that I am capable of. But if you are looking for people who are very good at Limited, who already have some ideas and grasps on the format currently, I would suggest any of those people that I just mentioned. Those are kind of those are like the content creators that I watch to help myself get better at draft, and then I just kind of try to pass along general tips and information down to you, as well as just, you know, showing off my drafts if you want to see a variety of drafts and stuff, because there's fun to that too. It's not all just trying to show off in an informative way. It's also just like, hey, check out another draft. It's fun. Anyways, I'm getting rambly here, so I'm gonna cut the video. Thank you all for watching, as always, and I will see you again tomorrow for more Magic Arena.